Welcome to Memorial Day 2020 Newburyport, a virtual experience. I am Kevin Hunt, the Veteran Service Officer for the City of Newburyport, and today we hope to bring the feeling of Memorial Day right into your own home. Picture with me, if you will, that we are on the front steps of City Hall in Newburyport, and the band is at the ready. The scouts are all bunched together, ready to do a Pledge of Allegiance. Veterans from all the wars are gathered out front. And the honor guards for the police department and the Coast Guard are standing at respect, awaiting the national anthem. And now, the Newburyport High School Marching Band, under the able direction of Sergeant Steve Cohen, with the United States National Anthem. And now, I would like to introduce the Mayor of Newburyport, Donna Holliday.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Kevin, and welcome. Welcome to all in Newburyport, especially our veterans. Memorial Day has been a time-honored tradition in our city with much fanfare and great support from our residents, first responders, scouts, students, the high school band. Today, we want to hold on to some of those traditions in our virtual ceremony. I look forward to the day when we can all resume public gatherings, but for now, safety of all, especially our senior veterans, is of highest priority. My sincerest thanks to all the men and women and their families that gave so much for our country. And now, it is a tradition on Memorial and Veterans Day to read the names of veterans who have departed in the last 6 months. If we're outside, a bronze bell would be struck for each veteran's name I read. So think about that. Robert A. Tewksbury Sr., United States Air Force. Robert was born in Newburyport and served as a crew chief during the Korean War and was owner and operator of Tewksbury Transmissions. George Edward Dodge, Jr., United States Navy. Ed served aboard the USS Wisconsin. He was founding member of the Newburyport Redevelopment Authority, which catalyzed the rebirth and reconstruction of Newburyport in the 1970s. Ed's vision and determination saved many of the buildings and cobbled stone sidewalks in Newburyport. Richard C. McKinnon, United States Navy. Richard was born in Newburyport. After enlisting in the Navy, he became an underwater demolition expert and later qualified as a Navy SEAL on SEAL Team 2. Before his enlistment, he was a dancer on American Bandstand. P. Scott Smith, United States Navy and United States Army. Scott had a degree in physics and was a member of the Navy and the Army at the same time. His specialty was radar, and his skill saved many lives during the war. He was a physics instructor in life, a life master at bridge, and a badminton professional. Ronald A. Lepere, United States Army. Ron retired from Mass Electric after 29 years. He was a member of the Knights of Columbus and taught Sunday school at the Immaculate Conception. He enjoyed working for his daughter as a driver for Sarah's Place Adult Day Care. Louis Frank Della Gata, United States Army Reserves. Louis was a member of the Newburyport Elks and the Newburyport Oddfellows. He enjoyed many sports, games, gardening, and watching his grandson's hockey games. Albert Douglas McBurney, United States Army. Doug served in the Korean War and returned to his hometown of Newburyport to serve as a Newburyport City Councilor, involved with the urban renewal, downtown revitalization project, the Henry Graff skating rink, and many other projects. Eugene D. Talbot, United States Air Force. Gene served during the Korean conflict and was involved in air rescue services. He loved the area's seashore and nature trails. He was a brilliant astrophysicist who participated in the Apollo lunar landing, the Hubble telescope, and the U-2 spy plane and classified missions. His mantra of teach peace will live on with all who knew and loved him. Captain Paul Leo Lupkin, United States Marine Corps. Paul saw extensive combat in the jungles of Vietnam. He won the 1992 Indianapolis 500 with driver Al Unser Jr. and the Galleys racing team. He represented sports athletes and worked with Bob Wolf in Boston. Paul died from a heart condition caused by his exposure to Agent Orange in Vietnam. Peter E. Mamakos, United States Marine Corps. After retiring as an electrical designer, Peter worked at Lynch's Pharmacy in Newburyport. He recited tales about the good old days and was always ready with a one-liner or a joke. William P. Moore, United States Navy. Bill graduated from the Immaculate Conception High School in Newburyport as a star basketball player. In the Navy, he sailed around the world aboard the USS Canberra in 1960. Bill worked for the Newburyport Water Department before working for the State Highway Department as a foreman. Francis Bud Cartledge, United States Navy. Born in Newburyport and a graduate of Newburyport High School, Bud joined the Navy after graduation. He was an electrical engineer for Western Electric, then AT&T, and retired from Lucent Technologies. Dale Hughes Snowden Sr., United States Army, National Guard. Dale proudly served his country for 43 years in the Army National Guard. An avid outdoorsman, he enjoyed hunting, fishing, and camping, as well as traveling. Richard A. Kilbourne, United States Navy. Rick joined the Navy after high school and served our country proudly during the Vietnam War. He was a founder and co-owner of Boatwise Marine Training with his late wife, Suzanne, and taught boaters proper boating safety. M. Elizabeth Riker, United States Coast Guard. Betty was raised and educated in Newburyport and was a graduate of Newburyport High School. She served honorably in the United States Coast Guard as a member of the Spars during World War II and was an accomplished violinist who played in numerous Newburyport area churches. William F. Packer, United States Navy. Bill attended Newburyport High School, married the love of his life, and served 4 years with the Navy during the Vietnam War. Bill was a police officer with the Salisbury Police Department and retired with the rank of sergeant after 26 years. Clarence S. Sielicki, United States Air Force. Clarence was born in Newburyport and graduated from Newburyport High School. He was the owner of Savelle Coiffeurs in Newburyport and the House of Savelle in Lawrence. He was also a member of the American Legion. Normandy Boudreau Richard, United States Army. Norman grew up in Newburyport and graduated from Newburyport High School. He served in Korea, and for several years he was an airplane mechanic for U.S. Airways and Eastern Airlines. Earlier, he was a competitive bowler, enjoying hockey and ice skating. John W. Woods, United States Army. John was born in Newburyport and graduated Newburyport High School and formed his own successful company. He gave the gift of skiing to both his children and grandchildren. He was a member of the Disabled American Veterans of Newburyport. George Gig Random, United States Air Force. Gig, a longtime resident of Newburyport and a radio operator on a B-17 bomber during World War II. He earned the Air Medal after completing 31 combat missions over Germany. An avid amateur astronomer and professional inventor, he founded Random Devices in Georgetown, Massachusetts. Alan W. Gaspar, United States Navy Reserves. Alan inherited his grandfather's farm and spent many years haying, picking blueberries, and fishing while restoring John Deere, Ford, and Alias Chambers tractors. He attended Boston University at night and served in the Naval Reserve from 1950 to 1962. Leslie A. Ramsey Jr., United States Navy, United States Army. Leslie served during World War II in the Navy and enlisted in the Army for the Korean War. He worked for General Motors in Framingham. He was a professional musician and nationally renowned singer. He worked well into his 80s and was a member of the Screen Actors Guild for 30 years. William Smokey Greenwood Jr., United States Army. Smokey proudly served in the Army during the Korean War. A longtime resident of Newburyport, Smokey worked 30 plus years for the Department of Public Works in Newburyport. He is survived by his wife, Veronica. Michael K. Robinson Sr., United States Army, National Guard. Born in Newburyport, worked for 30 years at the Amesbury Chair Company as a woodworker, designing and making furniture. He was a sports fan, following all Boston sports teams. He bowled and helped coach Special Olympic track teams for many years. Michael Dennis O'Brien, United States Navy. Michael served aboard the aircraft carrier Independence. He spent many years in the transportation industry and was a well-known local cook. Known fondly as OB, Michael was an avid Harley-Davidson motorcyclist and musician. Moyle Duke Langell, United States Navy. Duke was joined in the Navy in 1954. He retired as a quality inspector at a military and aerospace manufacturing company in Amesbury. Duke had a great sense of humor and was a gifted storyteller. He was also a talented woodworker and gardener. William Joseph Pasquina, United States Coast Guard. William was an Eagle Scout and joined the Coast Guard, where his travels were a pivotal point in his life. He was a member of the Mass Bar Association and formed his own practice, where he won the highest workers' compensation settlement in the Commonwealth. Clifford Peter Martinelli, United States Navy. Cliff graduated from Newburyport High School and drafted into the Navy, proudly serving during World War II. He became a television technician and operated Goddard Television with his brother. Could we have a moment of silence, please, to think about and honor all of those veterans who have departed since Veterans Day in November? Thank you. And our apologies to any veterans that we might have missed. Please be sure to contact our Veterans Service Officer, Kevin Hunt, who as always does an amazing job for our veterans. So please call him and let him know if we missed a name, and we will add that to our list for Veterans Day in November. Thank you to all our veterans, the great men and women who have served our country, and to their families. Please take a moment and think of all of our veterans on Memorial Day. Thank you.
Memorial Day honors our veterans who have passed. In our recent wars, we lost 2 veterans from this area, First Lieutenant Derek Hines and Sergeant Jordan Shea. And occasionally you may look up at a flagpole in Newburyport, you'll see a flag that has 2 gold stars on it. And those gold stars are there to represent those 2 men. I mention them now, not just because it's Memorial Day, but both of those individuals have families who started charitable foundations, and those foundations do tremendous amount of work locally here with veterans and their families. Because of the virus, the annual fundraisers that those charities do had to be canceled, and they certainly would welcome your donations. So I mention them here if you want to contribute locally. And boy, that's the question I get all the time. How can I give money that is used locally? Well, here it is, 2 charities, the First Lieutenant Derek Hines Veterans Assistance Fund and the Sergeant Jordan M. Shea Memorial Foundation. And if you want to know how to get a hold of them, you can call the Veterans Office, 978-462-2201. You know, the history of Memorial Day is an appealing story. I want you to imagine with me a warm spring day, and you're in Mississippi, and the year is 1866. And it's 1 year after the end of the Civil War. You're out in the middle of a field, wandering back and forth across the field with a group of women. As these women move across the field, they stoop down and they place a flower on a mound of dirt. The mound of dirt represents a burial place, and the women are wandering across a battlefield from the Civil War, and they're placing those flowers on the graves of their husbands, their sons, their brothers, all the people killed in a needless war. All wars are needless. And after they've completed placing these flowers on the graves of their soldiers, they look over across the field and see there's a group of newly buried, newly unearthed graves, and no one's putting flowers on them. And those are the enemy, the Northerners, the Grand Army of the Republic, who fell at the same time and were buried there. Silently, without saying a word, the women walk across to the other graves and they decorate those. And that happened 154 years ago, and that is the beginning of Memorial Day. What was originally called Decoration Day, now Memorial Day, and some people mistakenly think the birth of the barbecue or just another Monday. When you're relaxing today on Memorial Day, and I hope that you have a beautiful day doing that, take a moment to think that every veteran of the United States Armed Forces gave something up of themselves. Many of them just gave up time, 2 or 3 years of their lives. Some gave up more than time. They gave up the ability to walk or to see or to talk. And sadly, as First Lieutenant Hines and Sergeant Shea did, some gave their lives. All men and women in the armed forces have one thing in common. No matter where they served at any time, all of them raised their right hand and pledged their lives for this country. And for those men and women in our military, I truly say thank you for your service. And please remember, most importantly, that no veteran has ever started a war, but they have ended every one of them. And now I thought, Mayor, we might take a little journey off the steps of City Hall and wander down Green Street and find our way to the waterfront next to what used to be called the Black Cow. And there is a Coast Guard boat hovering in close to the water. And as we gaze there, a wreath is tossed into the river, and that wreath symbolizes the lives of the Coast Guard and Navy and fisher people as well, fishermen and fisherwomen who have lost their lives at sea. I'd like to ask the band to play the Coast Guard hymn, Semper Paratus. And now we'll move from the waterfront. This is a large group of people that we have with us today. We have the band in the front. They're leading us up State Street. Crowds are along the side waving. Kids have little flags waving at us. And eventually we make our way down to the Veterans Cemetery. This is a beautiful area. You have it pictured behind you, Mayor. You're standing right about where Joe Rochette would be buried. Joe Rochette was the first gentleman who was buried in the Veterans Cemetery, also one of the early organizers of Yankee Homecoming in Newburyport. Joe always said, no one will ever remember me. Well, Joe, we remember you every single Memorial and Veterans Day. This is a beautiful area. I hope any of you who have ever had a chance to come down to this cemetery get a chance to take a look up the hill and see how straight all of the headstones are. And that is the work of an individual in Newburyport by the name of Glee Woodworth, who years ago started that effort and since then erected 2,000 straight headstones in this cemetery and others in the city. Mayor, I know you would join with me in wishing everyone here a blessed Memorial Day, a healthy one, hopefully healthy for a long time, and looking forward to that time when we can all get together and do this personally. If you have anything that you'd like to say now before we go, I'll pass the microphone to you.
Thank you, Kevin. I think it's always important that we, take a moment and think about the history of Memorial Day and what it stands for, and the many men and women throughout our history who have given the ultimate sacrifice for our country. And unfortunately today, we are still embroiled in conflicts across the world and are still losing men and women who are supporting the beliefs of our country. So please do take a moment on Memorial Day. Maybe you'll be watching this in the morning or look at it later. But at 3 o'clock, that's the national moment of silence. Take a moment, stop, pause, and thank the veterans for all they have given for our country and for our freedoms. Thank you, Kevin, again, for all you do for our veterans and your able assistants, Jeremiah. You do an amazing job for the veterans in our area. And even despite the problems with getting all the flags that we usually have, and unfortunately the kids weren't there this year to help put them throughout all of the gravestones, you still managed to be able to get a number of flags out. I also wanted to take a moment and thank Richard Banks, who takes care of most of the flags, the public flags in our city, and gives us a variety of flags on loan to ensure that we have enough flags to honor and support our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And I certainly echo your thoughts about the school children. It is such a delight on a normal Memorial Day to be out in a cemetery and watch these children learn about why we're doing this, the value of Memorial Day. And then they take it very seriously, almost solemnly, some of them, and they go out and they put the flag down. And the nice part is the teachers in Newburyport school system have this year volunteered and will be meeting on Friday over at St. Mary's, and a group of teachers and their friends will be doing what the school children normally do. Thank you all for joining us today. I'm now going to ask Sergeant Cohen to have the Newburyport High School Marching Band play Amazing Grace. We will then move into a rendition of Taps, and thank you for joining us.